I just woke up. I was sleeping.
Oh shit! Did I wake you up, man?
No, no, no. I got up to have dinner. I just I finished all this stuff around here today, and then I was like kind of just dozed off for a little while, and then we got up and I had dinner, and then I talked to you right when I was finishing my dinner, so I was a little disheveled.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, this man is very responsible for a lot of the most extreme metal recordings ever to come out in existence. He's been a tour manager. He has been recording engineer, producer, studio wizard. Fucking Mr. Jarrett Pritchard. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing.
Man, uh, I got to meet, I was able to, formally meet you in person this past weekend. I mean, we met briefly at a certain Acid-Bat rehearsal, which was pretty awesome. By the way, the stuff you recorded for them at that practice was phenomenal, and so I really appreciate you coming on board and doing this, man. Thanks.
Yeah, happy to, for sure.
Yeah, so basically, dude, I just what I like to do is just get everyone who comes on this show and just get their story, man, and what led you to where you at now, and we go far as back as you want to take it.
Um, well, I take it far. I mean, take it to the beginning.
Let's go.
Normal American thing. My parents were hippies that probably, you know, thought the thing to do was to get married and have a kid or whatever. My dad played in bands, and so my some of my earliest memories are of his rehearsals in our house. Um, I was probably predetermined to be I think like a drummer because I was obsessed with drums as a kid. Oddly, um, and that's not really the way it went. But my mom said that I was really hyper aware of music, even as a kid, super young kid, like two. I would tell her songs to find on the radio, blah blah blah. So, um, 70s, the way things go or whatever, parents split. Uh, I guess it has some level of whatever for all kids that go through that kind of thing. And around about when I was 4 or 5, I started getting really interested in music, with bands by name. And we're talking about a 4 or 5 year old kid here.
Right,
So
right.
the first record I ever bought was Queen News of the World. And oddly enough, my mom's an actress. So she put me in a television commercial when I was a kid. And I got paid $40. And she put the rest of the money in a savings account for me, but I was allowed to have $4. And I went to Peaches and I bought Queen News of the World. And that was my first record that I ever had. And then just super obsessed with music. And I don't think, 4 or 5, I think I cared about drums, but I don't think I cared about playing music or being a rock star yet. Real soon after that, I walked into my Aunt Ruth Ann's bedroom, looked on the walls, and there were these guys painted up, and naturally it was Kiss. And I was like, what is that? What is that? And she's like, that's Kiss. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna do that. That's what I was gonna do. And so she gave me Destroyer without the cover, so my mom wouldn't know what it was, and the Christine 16 7-inch and the Dr. Love 7-inch. And right pretty much from there, it was music. I'm gonna play music. And I, got an acoustic guitar first, went and took lessons, hated it, didn't give a shit about playing Kumbaya or whatever. And, but I stuck it out. My dad taught me some stuff. And then when I was 10 or 11, he got me an electric guitar. And now we had electric guitars, and I didn't live with my dad. I only visited him, but he had recording studio stuff, 4 tracks and things like that. And by the time I was about 10 or 11, he sort of introduced me to what that was, multi-track recording and playing music. And I had this electric guitar, I mean, I had been trying to form a rock band in my neighborhood since I was probably like 7. Like, but the pain in the ass was always drummers. It's always a drummer thing. And, you know, I, kind of got the gist of like recording and multi-track recording. My dad had like a little studio in the house, and
Yeah.
he taught me a bunch, and I was learning about how to wire speaker cabinets and how to fix things. And, by the time, well, I was trying to form bands, and the way that it kind of starts is that I'm walking down the street, and you have to kind of take in the context of the 80s that like if you went hardcore, and when I say like hardcore, I don't really mean the version of it that there is now. Like in the 80s, like going hardcore just kind of meant that you like got turned on to punk rock.
Yeah.
And Minor Threat was hardcore, Bad Brains were hardcore, MDC was hardcore, DRI was hardcore, COC was hardcore, TSOL, DK, all that stuff. So you got turned on to that. They called it like going hardcore. But the normal kids did not like that. And like they like kind of found out that you went hardcore, they would kind of come hunt you down.
Yeah.
You get jumped. I mean, well, I was walking down the street one night, and this car pulled up and stopped, and I was like, ah, shit, I'm about to get it. And out jumps two of my friends to this day, Sean Spindell and my friend Patrick Maxey. And they were like, hey, we heard you play guitar, this, that, or the other, do you want to join our band? And they were much older than me, like much, like maybe like 4 or 5 years older than me. I was like, hell yeah, I do. Of
Hmm.
course I want to join your band. Well, we went and joined, jammed out or whatever, and it wasn't good. Uh, Patrick was a terrible drummer. I'll tell him that to this day. But we, played, and they had like some ridiculous name for their band, like the Whiskey Dicks or something dumb that I didn't really care about it because I was just a kid. I was just trying to play music. And short story is, about a year later, a friend of ours named John Corbett, we were skipping school, sat down behind Pat's drums, and just kind of looked real matter of factly and goes, "I think I'll play drums now," and proceeded to play like Felix Griffin. And I was like, well, "All right." And then we're off. We started playing shows. Um, I'm giving you the cliff notes on this whole story.
Oh no, you don't have to give the cliff notes, man. This is your time to shine.
Um, and in the 80s, there was kind of a strange culture phenomena of what to do with the kids. What to do with the kids. I was probably no different than any other kid at that time. I partied and ran around. I probably like smoked a little bit of pot, like probably took some acid or whatever, and definitely was not um, hyper heavily involved in any sort of like drug situation or whatever. I was just a punk rock kid and ran around and
Right.
did what we did, but wasn't like I mean, of course, at the time, obviously we had a crack epidemic in America. I had nothing to do with that. I wasn't into doing that kind of stuff, but I did manage to get myself in trouble more than once, and led to some things at home that didn't really work out. And so by the time I was 14, I left home. I started running away from home. And I would go down to the beach where all the punk rockers were and hang out down there. I would go hang out where my band guys were. And that all happened all the way into, high school. And then ultimately in the spring of 1988, I left home permanently. I was still playing with my band. We'd have little punk rock shows at house parties, and it would get wild and we'd have a good time. And I left home, and I paid an old friend of mine named Steve Szynski $30 to drive me to Florida. And he drove me down here to Florida. And, there really wasn't anything super interesting happening music wise where I was. I lived in Virginia, at the southeastern Virginia. And
Okay.
my Aunt Ruth Ann lived in Tampa. And so, I had been rolling around, like crashing at friends' houses, couch bumping and stuff like that for a couple months. And I talked to my Aunt Ruth Ann. She's like, you should just come down here. It'd be cool. We'll do this, out of the other. And so I got a ride to Florida, to Tampa, as luck would have it, right in 1988. If you know anything about your history in death
Oh,
metal.
I got questions already loaded for you, but if you don't even start, with that history.
So, long story short, and this is kind of special for you, Mo, because I've never actually talked about this publicly, but I'm going to do it today.
That's what I'm talking
I
about.
lived down there.
Exclusives.
I lived down there with my aunt Ruth Ann, and basically, she had her soon-to-be husband John, and they found out they were going to have a kid and everything, and they were going to move up to New Smyrna Beach. And I really wanted to stay in Tampa. Like, I had already seen some shows. Now, the first show I went to was a punk rock show in Florida that was a real eye opener for me. Like, punk rock was punk rock in Virginia, and we had all different like factions of people, but Florida was a completely different story.
Mhm.
And I think I was too young, too stupid to be scared or intimidated, but it was wild and brutal. By, like the fall of 88, I mean, one of my first exposures to like Florida metal, it was Halloween and it was Nocturnus Executioner, which, as you know, became Obituary,
Right.
and another band called Fatal Blessing, and that was like a show, just a regular show at a kind of rundown club called Sunset Club, and it was really intense. So I liked Tampa. I had a girlfriend, this, that, and the other, and I had friends that I went to high school with at that point, and I was like, I like this place. I'm going to stay here. Well, it's not exactly what happened. So what happens is I got sick. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with me, but I got sick in December, at the end of December, and I was like, I need to go to the doctor and get it checked out. So my girlfriend and her mom at the time took me to the hospital to just have like a checkup to see if I was all right, because it was a stomach flu or something thrown up or whatever. And you gotta understand, like, this is the 80s, and I mean, I'm full on fucking punk rocker,
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
gauntlets and fucking the hen and then fucking makeup and punk rock.
Do you have any? You have any pictures of that? I need that for content purposes only.
No, there are not. Actually, I would give them to you. There really aren't. It's strange.
Okay.
I didn't really get a lot of pictures taken back then. Strangers have pictures that would, like, when I had my mohawk or whatever, that would ask to take my picture in public,
Uh-huh.
and did, but I don't have those. They're just strangers. So anyway, long story short, I got into an argument with a social worker at the hospital that was accusing me of all manner of things that weren't true, and I basically called her a really not nice word that starts with a C, and told her to fuck herself. And then, uh, long story short, they called my mom. They told my mom a bunch of bullshit back in Virginia. Mom's freaked out because it's the 80s, and they were really good at scaring parents into things. So they send me back to the waiting room, and all of a sudden, I'm sitting in the waiting room, and I'm like telling my girlfriend and her mom, like, we got to get out of here. This isn't good.
Mhm.
Next thing you know, two cops walk in, grab me up, put me in a car, and take me to kitty jail, the detention home.
Juvie.
I had been through this before, and I know that running away from home is not a crime. That's not a crime. So when they got me to the jail and started to do the intake or whatever, I basically told the two officers there, like, you can't put me in here. I haven't committed a crime. Runaway is not a crime. And if you do, I'm going to sue your ass. You have to put me in a group home. That's shelter. That you have to do it. So they did. Moved me to a place, and this is over a course of only a few days. I actually spent my 16th birthday in front of a judge who said, basically, you're real smart. You know how the law works. Well, now I'm court ordering you to this group home or whatever. And if you run, now you're going to jail. So anyway, I was there. I got picked up by my mom, drove down to Florida with her friend, came and got me, made a pit stop in Orlando. I mean, not Orlando, excuse me, New Smyrna, picked up a co-worker and buddy of my uncle who was a wrestler. We got in the car and proceeded to drive to Virginia. Only we passed the turn to go to southeastern Virginia, which is 58. If you're a touring person, you go 95, you turn on 58 to go out to the coast of southeastern Virginia.
Mhm.
Didn't happen, kept going. Blah, blah, blah. Where are we going? Oh, here, blah, da, da, da. Next thing you know, I'm in Springfield, Virginia on Backlick Road, and I'm sitting in front of the dreaded yellow brick building known as Straight Incorporated. And I tried to run, and the baby locks were on the car, and buddy of my uncle's put his hand on my shoulders, like, don't run, like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
I walk in, and there I am in what, I mean, this is legend to kids at the time. You go to Straight Incorporated, it's a fucking brainwashing camp. You're done, man. Like, you're not coming back.
Right.
Well, there I was in there. The details of what they do in there, it's really like, imagine 1984. You sit in a room for 12 hours a day in a chair, standing up very straight, and there's someone at a podium screaming and yelling at you all day long, and there's American flag on the wall, 12 steps on the wall, this, that, and the other. And it's brutal. It's mentally brutal. But I was very, I would say that I'm pretty quick about assessing situations. So I spent the time reciting song lyrics in my head, telephone numbers, anything I could so that nothing could penetrate. So I didn't see it. Took 9 days. And on January 14th, 1989, from Springfield, Silver Springs, Maryland, I escaped in the snow. I ran
Bam.
I ran out the side door of a house, what's called a host home, where he stayed, myself and two other people who I don't know. I didn't know them. I basically talked them into running with me. I
Mhm.
went out the side door with one shoe on, one shoe in my hand, a windbreaker, like polyester pants, and went out the side door and ran for like a mile in the. I mean, it's snowing. This is January in Maryland. This isn't a joke.
Yeah.
Finally got to some woods, sat down. I was luckily wearing wool socks at the time, put my shoes on, got it going on. And so there's no GPS, there's no navigation. We don't know where we are. Just, we have to get across the city at midnight and try to find an interstate.
You're essentially in a Hardy Boys situation.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it was pretty wild. So, long story short, got, we found an interstate. We hitchhiked from a feeder interstate. We got in the back of a pickup truck. We rode to 95 proper, and I didn't go south. I went north because everywhere I would go is south. So if I go north, they'll be looking the wrong direction. About 20 miles to a town called Laurel, Maryland. I still to this day, I'm not sure how we didn't freeze to death, because people have frozen to death, like just sleeping in their cars up there. It's
Yeah.
pretty brutal. But I had some friends in Florida. My good friend Max Sisk, who plays in a band called Push Button Press. It's kind of like Sisters of Mercy or something. His family were always like real friendly towards me and good to me. And long story short, they sent me a bus ticket from Maryland to go to Florida to
So you're
escape. And
16. You're still 16 right here?
yep, yeah. This is January 14th. My birthday's January 4th, so 10 days after my 16th birthday.
Gotcha.
And we moved down to Florida. I did. I took the bus back to Florida. I got a job. Max's family helped me a lot. They had an electrical company. They gave me a job and let me kind of crash out and hide out in their warehouse for a while. And a little bit down the road from there, I met the members of what would become Eulogy, and we started the band. All moved in together in this house, and then it was Mr. Toad's wild ride for the next 6 years or whatever have you, playing in Eulogy. And then when things changed, the death metal scene kind of changed. I decided that I was going to be an engineer full time. And I pursued that in the beginning in Tampa, like working just for different companies or whatever. But then I relocated back to Virginia, and my dad and I had kind of upgraded the studio in his house to a little bit more workable situation. I started trying to make records uh, up in the two bedrooms of the house,
Damn.
and teaching myself how to do it, reading everything I could read, and I was also doing live sound for a job, like in clubs and this, that, and the other. I did that for quite a bit, and expanding from there. Then 2000s, my kids were born. Live sounds dangerous. A lot of hip hop. There's a lot of violence at that time in hip hop, and
Yeah.
I saw riots, active shooters in the room where I was. Had 2-year-old kids, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. So then I went and cut and mixed television for Discovery Channel for about 5 years. I think we ultimately, our team was responsible for around 300 hours of television. I think I personally, by myself, without a team, was responsible for maybe 150 of that, but we all worked as a audio department. So ultimately, we did about 300 hours. I left there when I got done with that, and I went and I taught at a university. Well, now it's a university. It wasn't at the time, called Full Sail. And I want to be clear with everybody: I did not go to school.
Okay, that was my next question for you. I was like, man, did you like receive any type of formal training to teach?
I forgot to tell you one thing.
Mm.
My dad, name's Kelly Pritchard, John Kelly Pritchard. My dad was an acoustics engineer for NASA for about 30 years.
Oh, all right. Here, okay.
And I learned I learned a good amount from him, I would say,
Yeah.
definitely. Um, but I've talked about this a couple times. Whether or not I'm good at this thing or whatever is completely subjective. That's for someone else to say. But I will tell you from my perspective that I immediately understood it,
Mhm.
technically speaking.
Yeah.
Just it made sense in a way. I'm not saying like I said this on another podcast, but it makes sense. I'm not saying I'm Tony Hawk, but Tony Hawk at some point or another dropped in and did a frontside air.
Right.
I was like, I understand this.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like engineering was to me. Like I just feel like I got it immediately. And then
It was just a natural thing that felt right with you.
the other thing is too is I was very extremely passionate about it. Like I love rock and roll. Like I love music. Like the history of how we made these records, of how music has changed, how is something that just makes me very happy to be a scholar of the history and to hopefully contribute to some of it in some way. But so no, I did not have any formal training whatsoever. And as a matter of fact, it was really funny that I got asked to come and teach at this school, uh, this audio school. Um,
Mhm.
but I went and I taught. It went really well. I did it for like 4.5 years. Um, I really enjoyed teaching, and I think I was successful at it because I didn't. You can go and take a class on some things, and we have professors or whatever that are jerking themselves off with their own dialogue. Look,
Right.
intentionally speaking to you in a way that you don't understand, and I don't agree with that. I don't think that's a good way to teach anything.
Mhm.
Matter of fact, I think that you go through a process and you dumb it down in a language that people can understand, and the more that they understand, the more you increase the complexity of the language. And you have to do
I'm not
that in a sliding scale to be able to
Yeah.
teach somebody if your goal is that they learn. If your goal is just to feed your ego or whatever the hell you're doing, that's not teaching, that's something different. I did
Well, where
really
where
well
does
at it.
I was about to say, where does one sign up to be an apprentice under Jarrett Pritchard? Because I'm ready. I'm ready. I'll put my application in right now.
Um, you know what? It mostly has to do with close proximity, like being around, and it's funny, because with that type of thing where assistants are concerned, or whatever, it's nice to have people that have like base skills and this, that, and the other. But at the same time, too, if you take an assistant or whatever, you're going to teach them how to do it like you, and that's just really important for workflow, just to be able to be on the same page to get things done. But
Right.
so I taught, and then I didn't. I decided that I was going to go and do other things, and right about at the end of the teaching, I got a call from Tony Loriano, who was playing for 1349 at the time, and he asked me to come out of like touring sound retirement and do 1349. And at first, I didn't really want anything to do with it. Basically, I think my exact words was, "I don't want anything to do with a bunch of church burning Norwegians." I'm pretty sure that's what I said. Not because I give a shit about churches. I
Yeah.
just was a dad. I was a family man. I've got 2 kids, and mayhem is not on my list of things to do. And I wasn't really, interestingly enough, you might not know this. I was kind of done playing in eulogy by the time black metal sort of rose for real.
Yeah.
I didn't really think a whole lot about it one way or the other. And in the early days, I kind of took offense being a Floridian, because there was like an outright type of hatred towards us in Tampa. And there are many stages of progression in metal.
Yeah.
I sat here today with a very important person in metal. Name is Scott Burns, who, at a time where there was no precedent set, figured out what to do with this music.
Hmm.
Production has gone through many evolutionary changes, and we have definitely improved since those days. But the climate at the time that those records were done, uh, no normal person listened to that kind of music, and most engineers would have said, "This is noise. I don't want anything to do with it." And the thing that you always have to remember about Scott is having the vision to see through that and say, "This is something special, and I'm going to try to make this work."
Hmm.
So I have a lot of respect for him. My point was is that the back of the record with the through Scott Burns and Sweatpants Metal. I mean, that's all fine and good. I didn't see you show up in Florida and run your mouth like that, though.
Oh no.
It might
No.
it might not have gone like you think. But so I didn't really care too much about it. But I told Tony I would do the tour because I got bribed. Carcass is the headliner. You'll get to
Oh,
see
there you
Carcass
go.
17 times. And I said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go see Carcass. So, and then anyway, I met my good friends, my family, my absolute brothers, 1349 at that point, after I was getting ready to not teach anymore. And I went out and toured with them. And what I found them to be was extremely intelligent, extremely articulate. Um, the show, the black metal, I don't think I understood it before. That whole process is a ritual for those guys. Nobody's running around in corpse paint all day long. That's not how it works.
No. No.
And it's a ritual. And they're preparing to present you with a vehicle to go to a place of extreme, stark, cold darkness in the most genuine way.
Hmm.
But in the daytime, they're pretty regular guys, very intelligent, and a lot of fun to work with. And we did the first tour, and we really got along. And I'm not really a raging partier. I keep my shit together. I go out and I do the work. And so once I did the first one, people saw me work and recognized that. And they said, "Oh, this is a reliable person, because if you're
Yeah.
a tour manager and you're, handling somebody's money, or you need reliable people." And because of that, people just started calling me. And, like it just went like anything else went. and I did it for quite a while. I was only recording in the house at the time. I wasn't really doing a lot of records and things. I basically had a mixing set up in my house. I had kind of gone through a real big life change pretty soon after that. I separated with the mother of my kids, and I actually ended up uh, like my kids living with me, single dad. So, 2009 or whatever, when they're 11, they lived with me, except when I would go on tour, they would go and stay at their mom's house. So, in addition to changing from being a teacher to being a touring engineer again, I also was kind of doing life things that were like, being a dad. And so it was a weird time. And I had a mixing rig in my house, and I would go tune drums on records for people because I can do that pretty well. And like tune for Morbid Angel, for Hate Eternal, Whitechapel, Agnostic Front, Madball, and on and on. Like I would go in and just tune the kit. I wasn't even engineering it. Other people were engineering. I would just tune the drums for them.
Hmm.
And at some point, I met my partner, Jeremy Miller, my business partner, and through a strange series of unforeseen events, we ended up starting the studio that I'm sitting in now, and we've had since 2014. And there you go. And there's a lot of little nuances in there, but you're going to have to dig them out of me because I'm tired of telling story now. But I'm happy.
Well, if we just want to go back to the tuning drums for various bands in Florida. Um, was Pete Sandoval one of the drummers that you worked with while he was in Morbid Angel, or that was after the
No,
fact?
but I knew, no, but I knew Pete really well. The drums I tuned were for Eric when he was doing the I
Okay,
record. I can't remember what it's called, but Tim Young was the drummer on it. And no, but we were friends with Morbid Angel since like 88 or 89. I mean, the first Eulogy Club show was at the Sunset Club on September 1st with it was Morbid Angel, Amon, and Eulogy, and it was the Altars of Madness CD release party.
nice.
September 1st, 1989. So we knew them always. Like we always knew those guys. And matter of fact, I even like lived at Pete's house with Pete and his girlfriend for I think like a month or two for a while, and a lot of association. But like, yeah, we knew all those dudes pretty well, especially Pete back then. And I mean, dude, the last rehearsal before they recorded Blessed Are the Sick, I was sitting on the floor in the rehearsal space watching them play the album through. Like I heard Day of Suffering before it was recorded.
Wow.
Like, so if you think about the blast in Day of Suffering, I was sitting right there when Pete went bon da 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 bon da 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 da. I witnessed, I mean, in my opinion, Pete's the first person to have command of that style of drumming. Like the commando is funny, like that is his nickname, but if you really look at it,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
he had, you know, abilities and a newfound way of controlling this monster of a way to play music. He's really great.
Hmm.
And anyway, so yeah, we knew Pete, but tuning the drums, no, that was for Tim Young when he was playing in Morbid Angel, and it was actually a fair for Eric because Rutan and I have been friends for a really long time.
Aside from the first record that you produced and recorded, um, and I mean that very well could be your favorite. But what is one of those records that really just stand out, like in your top 5 of records that you were responsible for, that just like sit back or you stand back and you're like, yeah, I was able to do that and just be proud of it. Like, what's that album?
Um, I don't know because I think I'm probably harder on myself with the work and where I want to get to than anyone else probably is. I really like the Pulchra records, because well, it's my band, so
Yeah.
you know. Um, It's hard to pick one, but I am really proud of Vengeful Ascension.
Really?
That Goatwhore record was we're just doing something different, and like I liked all the records that had been done before it.
Mhm.
Obviously, I've worked with the guys off and on for many years, but I wanted really badly. Like one thing that I noticed about vocalists or whatever is that a lot of times with records, they would do the record and then they would tour it for 6 months, and 6 months later, it would really gel and it would become the record. But you would only see it gel if you saw them live. Well, since I was their live engineer, I saw this process happen.
Mhm.
And so when I went into Vengeful, I really wanted it was really special, I mean, I didn't really ask them to do it. They asked me because they wanted to do something that was more like what they were live. And I kind of had that thing, and they asked me where I wanted to do the record, and I really wanted to work at Earth Analog in Tolono. Matt Talbot owns it, who's the singer guitar player for the band Hum. I knew the way the drum room sounded because of other records I liked that were done there. It was a live-in studio. It was far away from the city. It was far away from anything. So if you know musicians, all of them that like to party or whatever, the further away from anything you can get them, the better the record's going to go.
Absolutely.
And Ben and I are real close, Goatwhore, and I set him up in the vocal booth, and I hated the vocal booth, so I moved him out into the live room, put up gobos around him or whatever. I let him sing one song, and I said, "Okay, there's two ways we can do this. You can sing the record, and I'll record it, or you can let me do what I do, and we'll go through this, and we will make this what it's going to become 6 months from now."
Mhm.
And he said, "Yeah, bro, let's do that." And I have that same relationship with Raven from 1349 too, and it, I'm also real happy about the work I've done with those guys. But like Ben and I just sort of feed off each other, and like when we're working and we create a sort of vocal thing, and I kind of had like put it down to like there are characters that you play
Mhm.
in your songs, like you're either the antagonist, you're the protagonist, or you're the narrator. And if you kind of watch the way that Ben performs, that's very true. Like you know, the higher pitch stuff, I think is probably the protagonist, and the lower stuff more is the antagonist, and then the in between stuff, the spoken stuff, and like he'll do it live too. The finger will
The
come up
finger.
while he's saying it.
Yes.
That's when he's the narrator. He's
Yeah.
telling,
Telling a
and
story.
I dove in and I latched onto those things with it, and we just had a really good experience. And then I wanted to be the producer on that record. I didn't necessarily want to be the engineer, but I was the engineer when it came to tracking because I knew I could get, good things out of him. And I got to hire a mix engineer, and I got to hire my old friend Chris Common, who did a lot of the records for Sargent House. And he, has worked with a lot of different people, and he was running the studio at Omar from the Mars Volta's house.
Oh, wow.
And so I essentially hired him to mix the record, and then I flew down there to sit behind him for the first couple days just to make sure we were on the same page. And I really liked what he had done, what he was doing, and at the end of the day, I really liked that record. I think he did a really great job on it. I think the Goatwhore guys did a really great job on it. I think I did a good job on it, and we recorded it to tape. A lot of people don't know that, but that album's done on 2-inch tape.
Damn.
And Sammy says, "I'm never doing that again. Takes too damn long." Because he hated rewind. Like we would do a take of something, and he hated rewind.
Yeah.
And I guess everybody knows that cares that our really, really good friend and just giant of a human being, James Harvey, passed on, good journey to him. But he played the bass on that. And James is a really, really good friend of mine, and it was really great to work with him. So just in general, Vengeful is one of maybe like 3 or 4 that really stand out, but I really like that record. I really liked the collaborative effort between me and the band and then me and Chris, where I was able to produce it like sort of as an overwatch to the entire process
Yeah.
and be allowed to pull in different people that I thought would contribute to it really well. And so that's one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah, it you know, the sound on that thing, the production, you could tell. I mean, it's so good. It's one of my favorite albums as well out of their catalog. And I just going back a little bit, where y'all recorded it, in I guess it was outside of Chicago.
It's about 2 hours south of Chicago.
Yeah, and whenever it was when I first read about the recording, I don't know if it was in maybe online or something like that. I forget. But me being the music nerd that I am, I'm a huge fan of Hum,
Yeah,
and I mean, Hum to me, it was probably like my favorite, like um, the heaviest pop music that ever hit the mainstream radio. Like when
absolutely.
whenever Stars came out, like you prefer an astronaut and all that, dude. I love that shit. It was the heaviest riffage that like one could hear, and
Dude, that follow-up album, Downward is Heavenward, like, af
amazing.
dude, everything, it just that does Afternoon with Axel whatever,
Yeah.
it I mean, it's fantastic. It's band should be way bigger, but that's fine.
Absolutely.
But
And
that's fine because now it's only for people smart enough to listen to it.
exactly. Like, I still blast Coming Home, man.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
dude.
it's so fucking heavy for, like, just the a straight up rock record. I mean, to come out this, this day and age, I mean, it was just fucking amazing. Um, and, and, like, putting Goatwhore in the same studio that came from that band is just bananas to me. It's just,
The
you know
drum room there is it so there's a band from Kansas City called Shiner. They're more of like an alt like rock band kind of.
Uh-huh.
Mathy, remind me of Rush at times. I loved the drum sound on Starless and The Egg, like their 2 albums, and there's
Yeah.
like this thing called The Simple Truth where the middle of it's got this long thing and it's like got this like 30-second snare roll their drummer Jason Gherkin plays in this room. And it was just like when I heard the production on that their bass player Paul did, and I heard that drum sound, I was like, one of these days I'm going to make a record in that room.
Mhm.
And so that's why. And to be honest with you, not only the Goatwhore was done there, but uh, the Pulchra record, Ex Rosa, the second album, I did the drums there as well,
Yeah.
actually, because I just really like. And the funny thing is, I mean, funny story about that. I didn't know it was right next to a fucking set of train tracks. And I got there, arrived a day early to start the Goatwhore record. I was like, dude, I looked out the window and I mean, a train went by and
Yeah.
I heard, and it's not like a little bit of train. It's
That's a
like
lot of
a train. Dude, I was freaking out. I was like, "Oh my god. Oh my god." So the only thing that happened really is I just had to listen back to takes, make sure that there was no trainage, had gone by while we were doing a run. And actually, I didn't get caught by one at all, actually. But I was freaked out, dude. It was so funny because there's like train techs, like it's like the side of the building has a street. Across that street, and maybe like 50 more feet, there's a massive train tracks right there, and it's
right.
really hilarious. I was like, "Oh my god." But yeah,
Speak
I love that record, and Hum, to your point, is probably one of my favorite all-time favorite bands,
Oh,
and the
yeah.
guy Matt is a really, really great guy. He's really super awesome to work in his studio. He's just a really excellent human being.
Man, he that band, and I don't know, I'm sure it's a collaborative thing, like all bands, but the, um the attention to detail with that band, like, just making that alternative rock heavy in the best of ways, like, sonically, no one did it better than Home. I mean, maybe Soundgarden, but Soundgarden is huge, and all that. that came out the mid '90s. But man, it's just something about Hum that just to me, as a metal truist, just made me want to fucking punch something. And Soundgarden didn't make me want to do that, but Hum did.
Yeah, right. I mean, I love Soundgarden too, but yeah, and um, I think that I think that by the time you're finishing a record or whatever, you're so immersed in it. It's hard to see the forest for the trees at that point. You're
Right.
so immersed in it. So a lot of times it takes some time. You have to step back, be able to step back from it to see what it is. And I think that I'm kind of aware of that. So I sort of don't think too hard about the bigger picture. I stick with the details
Yeah.
until it's finished. And then hopefully it follows through and works out. That's kind of the
I like to
thing.
talk about the process of working with a band, and I'll use Goatwhore as an example. Like whenever let's just say Sammy and Ben have this artistic vision, and and I know Sammy just as well as you do. Like he comes in with all these songs pretty much written away a certain way. Is there is there any dialogue between engineer, producer, or you and Sammy saying, "Okay, like, I like the way this sounds, but what's the direction you want to take?" Like, is there any room for you to step in and say, I think this song should go this way," rather than where you have it? Like, and like, do you run into any issues with that with Gold Horror or anyone?
Um, I mean, every situation's different.
Yeah.
Um, with Goatwhore, the songs are done. Um, there's always a lot of discussion about what they're trying to do musically and sonically, and that's more where I come in.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I think my biggest contribution is like I said, like ping ponging back and forth with Ben with the stuff that he's got written to like just small things like, okay, so we're going to have this voice here, and then I want to answer it with the last line with two lower voices that like come from two sides, and I'm like, so I want it to be like, you're the protagonist here, and I want the demon antagonist to come like this from both sides. Like sonic landscapes and paintings, I think that we have we get weird, like there's Blood Moon, which is named something else, but that was the working title. Like all those war drums in it, like taking and setting up, floor toms for Zach. And, Zach like took washcloths and gaff taped them to make mallets on his drumsticks. And then the toms are mic'd from the top, but they're also have NS10 drivers on the bottom for sub, and then they're piped out to a real echo chamber in the back of the studio, and we're doing that. Or, like, oh, I need a piano on this first note of this riff. I just need you to hit the E. So I got, a U47 on the piano, and we're just doing different things, textures, different ideas, or whatever. And so there's input, but it's more to the landscape, not to the material.
Uh-huh.
You know, um, Sam and the guys, they come pretty correct. And discussions about visions for albums and this, that, and the other, like, to be totally honest with you, unless you're going to let me go to your rehearsal space with you and take the shit apart and rewrite it,
Yeah.
it kind of is what you bring,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, there have been times where there's been something in a song that I did not like, and I thought it was just bad, that I rearranged after the fact, and with Pro Tools or whatever, where I cut pieces of a song out or this or the other.
Uh-huh.
Um, I don't. I try to stay away from like correction of performances. I don't really like that. And I know people are like, oh, you're just an old man then. That's how we do it now. Yeah, well, fuck you. I like rock and roll. You play video games. Suck my dick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, um, but so like what I'll do, like for instance, like I'll do with Frost, for instance. I don't correct anything on Frost. I do 5 takes. I record 5 takes of the song and I will probably comp them together. No different than if I had a razor blade and was editing a tape machine. I just go, oh, well, maybe I like this fill better and this, that, and the other. And I'm usually allowed to do that to my own discretion for most bands.
Yeah.
I do multiple takes of things and I say, okay, well, I like this better. I'm allowed to comp a performance together if I think I need to. I mean, that's kind of my input. But a lot of times input for me has a lot to do with how well you can play. Like if you're in my studio and you're just sucking and your playing is so shitty and you didn't prepare and I've got to turn out a record and I've already been paid for half of it, so I can't send you home like I'd like to because you suck.
Yeah.
And I have to like cut your riffs together because your playing is so sloppy. I'm just hanging on for dear life trying to get a take. I don't have a lot of input. And then there are times when people want to do ridiculous things, it's like, oh, change, well, we're going to change the snare. No, I'm going to leave the snare head from 1960 on my snare drum because it's broken in. All right, well, like you're the one that hired me. You paid me and you don't want to hear what I got to say. That's fine. We're going to do it your way, but it's on you, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so my ability to be creative or bring things to the table has a lot to do with how well prepared you are in the studio. I mean, I very famously to a band one time has had somebody playing and playing really badly, and I'd looked right in the face in the control room, and I was like, like play little festivals, get on stage, look down on those kids like you're something, like you mean something, and sign your little fucking autographs. Do you deserve it? Do you? Because it doesn't seem to me like you care. Because if you cared, you would have practiced. Now you just sit here and you play like shit and you go out there and you pretend like you're something above them. You might want to reevaluate your station in life, son.
Yeah. No shit.
Hey, man, come in my studio not prepared. Like I don't get any pleasure in being a dick, but I will definitely tell you. I mean, I've walked in on, to find a musician that maybe is taking longer to get their parts done in the studio than they should. Maybe taking 5 hours to do a song or something. And I've walked into the lounge to see them partying and like yelled, I don't want to fucking see you without your instrument around your motherfucking neck again. You, if you're going to be here, you're going to prove to me that you deserve to be here. Is that my station? Is anyone paying me to do that? No. Could it get me fired? Yeah. But I'll push you to do it.
Yeah. You want because like you said, the record, the final product, not only on the band, but it's also on you, you know? And why should you have to um suffer for, the band's unwillingness to fucking stay professional, you know?
I'm far less willing to correct your shitty playing than I was 8 years ago. Like, I mix through a desk. I kind of like to treat this like as close to the old ways as possible because look, man, how many like, bomb blast tech bands have put out records in the last 10 years? How many? Countless.
Yeah.
It's a sea that I can't even begin to swim in. I just occasionally I hear something I'm like, oh, that's special, but mostly I can't even swim in that ocean.
Yeah.
We're still listening to Led Zeppelin.
That we are. Yeah.
Those records were made a certain way. We're still listening to Soundgarden.
Yep.
We're still, I mean, by the gauge of classic rock, like if you take the end of the 70s and you say that by 79, the Doors were classic rock, right?
Right.
about 10 years. Okay. Well, now Soundgarden, what did it end? 95, 96? I don't know when it ended, but
I mean, they what 97? I say was
like,
super
call,
unknown, something like
call
that.
it 97.
Yeah,
By that metric, by that measure, Soundgarden is classic rock almost times three. But we still listen to some of that music in the current tense.
that's what. Yeah,
Those records were made a certain way. There's something to that.
that being said, the way you're making your records, what do you consider is some of the most important equipment that you have in that studio that makes it all, the way it should sound?
Um,
Put it to you like this, like if there was like, aside from your board, like what is something that, you just, hey, look, told your business partner, we need this. This is what's gonna make or break us.
I do that a lot to him. Actually, I'm currently in negotiations to buy a uh, a really good clone of 1178 compressors. I think that probably my master bus is pretty important. It's I have a Better Maker mastering compressor, and I have a NSEQ4 Millennia, and I have a SSL Fusion. I have various flavors of the mastering compressor. Like I use this on the SSL mode. Um, I have three different flavors of it. I have the 500 series G comp, and then I have an Allen Smart C1 G comp, and then I have the Better Maker, which does an SSL comp on it. I think my two bus probably like I said, the Better Maker into the Millennia into the Fusion. The Fusion doesn't always get turned on.
Hmm.
The Millennia, I kind of use the Millennia like the way you'll see people use Pultex on the bus. Like you just have like a boost at like 100 and a boost at like 10K, like a couple dB, like shelves, just to, I don't know, light widen the presence. You'll see some guys like Andrew Sheps or whatever have Pultex and stuff on their master bus. I'm just doing it with this Millennia EQ that I happen to like quite a bit. Um, couldn't live without. Um, it's not a piece of electronics. It's a genuine, true love of the process, and it is an emotional understanding of music. And if I can't connect to your music on some emotional level and understand where you're coming from, then I won't do your record. Because the gear's whatever. I can make a good sounding record in the box in Pro Tools. I can do it in Logic. You can do it in Presonus Pro 1. You can do it without all this shit. I like this shit. I think it sounds way better. I like my console the most. It's like the one thing you said I couldn't say, but I like my console the most.
That's fair.
But you know, I think that the thing I couldn't do without is just the process, like that I like the music, that I want to make good music, that I enjoy being around people that have drive and talent. And hey, you don't have to be Steve Vai either. I'm happy to work with somebody that maybe doesn't have the chops to pull what they're trying to pull and help them work through it, and like to be able to play it. Like I enjoy that aspect of things, you know. I don't enjoy people that come in and maybe don't want to play and just assume that it's going to get fixed in a computer. I don't like that.
Yeah, everything. It's gonna come out in post production.
I would never approach my record like that. Or all this music, we're talking about like we're talking about like heavy music, extreme music. This is extremely emotional music still to this day. And we're not talking about the sea of, melodyne country pop that you hear in the airport and you can't tell one artist from another. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about music that was supposedly supposed to be, an outlet for the disaffected. And that's an emotional thing. And coming at it clinically, like figuring that everyone's going to fix it and make you look like something you're not. I mean, that goes back to a word from my childhood. That kind of makes you a poser.
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, if you're okay with that, with fronting and pretending, I mean, okay.
Yeah.
I'm
You know,
engineer. I'm not going to call you out. I mean, you pay me to edit Pro Tools. I'm Pro Tools instructor, certified monster guru with a avid DigiDesign since 1998. I'll cut that shit up and make you look like Eddie Van Halen
yeah,
if
yeah.
that's what you want. If that's what you want.
What's your I like to hear your since you've been doing this for so long, Jarrett, what's your take on all the like all the different plugins and like mastering buses that they have available to you know to guys like myself who record music at home, and like what's your take on that? Like are you for it or are you against it?
What do you mean? What am I for or against what? The software or doing it
Yeah, the
yourself?
software. Yeah.
I there's a lot of good stuff out there. I mean, I am a big fan of UAD. Um, so Universal Audio. I've been using it for years through my association with Raven and 1349. We got early on when it was first coming out, we had an opportunity to try out pretty much everything they made, and I just feel like it sounds really, really good. Some of the like plugin alliance stuff I really like. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff out there. There really is. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just a matter of like knowing how to use it. But don't one of the last times I went on social media or was on social media, I made a post about how the equipment really makes a difference. And what that came from was that I had played a bass line at home through my Focusrite Scarlett. And then I had come to the studio, same exact channel on Pro Tools, same plugins. I plugged in the bass to this Neve preamp behind me,
Mhm.
played the exact same bass, exact same line, and the difference was striking. Striking.
I'm sure it was.
I've got better digital clock over here. Whether, I have several different clocks that I work off in my room. I have the Antelope clock, I have my Metric Halo clock, and I also have the Crane Song clock, depending on what or why I make whatever decision. So, first of all, my clock is better. Second of all, my converters are better. And, I posted online, I was like, yeah, the gear really matters. And, people that I knew, people that I was like kind of friends with were like, it doesn't matter. You can write a good record at home. Yeah, fuck you. I didn't say you can't write a good record at home. I said the gear matters. Well, you don't need all that. I was like, yeah, we're not even having the same conversation here. I'm
Yeah.
telling you the gear makes a difference. You're telling me you can write a record at home. Great. I don't give a fuck. We're not having the same conversation. And that's annoying to me. It's annoying as shit to me.
Yeah.
Yes, the plugins are there. They sound really good. In the right hands, they can be really hard to compete with.
Mhm.
But, you know, I master a lot of records. In WaveLab, I've got certain things, certain plugins, this, out of the other, the highest level available stuff, got Weiss and all the UAD and the Oxford and the bada 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 and on and on. Then I have the ability to patch in, mastering compressor, hardware max BCL, I mean, and it the hardware typically wins. It just sounds better. But it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you can't do well with the software. And I think it's great that anybody can make a record now. I think it's great that anyone can do their own work if that's what they choose to do. I think you hire an engineer and you go to a studio for experience, because I will tell you when you're out of tune. I will tell you when your guitar needs intonation. I will tune your drums. I will change your drum heads. I have a deep understanding of phase. I can make microphones work together that shouldn't work together. I understand a 9 dB rule between drum shells so that you don't get eaten alive by bleed. I understand why to use a FET compressor as opposed to an optical compressor or a VCA compressor. I understand why the Veramute works on the vocal bus. Doesn't mean that you don't understand it. It doesn't mean that there's not a YouTube video. Wouldn't you rather
Right,
trust
right,
someone
right.
else to think about that? Just play,
Yeah,
feel something,
I agree with that.
capture
Everything you
the
said makes
feeling.
total sense. Yeah,
But I'm not
I
against
because
it.
I
I'm
know that.
not.
Yeah, I'm. It's for me to hear you say that, if you would gladly take somebody into your studio, and if they're not playing like Steve Vai or not, but they're willing, and they're willing to do all the work that you mentioned, you would work with them. And that's saying a lot about, where your passion is as an engineer and as a producer, to put out, a record that not only the band could be proud of, but you as well.
Sure. Well, I mean, I tell you, if you want to know about things that haunt me, I just said this in another interview today, so I'm going to be redundant, but it's important. One of the things that haunts me is that something will come across my desk that's revolutionary, and I will be too focused on the nuance of performance and proficiency to understand the magic therein. And the example I use all the time is, imagine being Pat Burnett at QuadTech and the germs walk into your studio. A notorious riot waiting to happen, train wreck of drunken, just abandon. And imagine if he had not been able to see the importance of the art underneath all that mess. We
Mhm.
wouldn't have GI.
Right.
Depending on how far back you go in punk rock or whatever, for your listeners, like, look, man, there are a couple important records that changed everything. Obviously, never mind the Bullocks, big one. The Roar sessions from the Bad Brains, big one. The Germs, GI, big one. Everything from the Black Flag, first 4 years, big, big, big stuff as far as changing the way things were doing. And imagine if you're an engineer so hung up on production and perfection that you didn't see the importance of the explosion in front of you,
Right.
and just have the intelligence to capture it. We had Scott Burns here today, and that's one of my favorite things about Scott Burns. Like, you look at when Scott Burns started doing records, whether you like his records or not, he had the vision to understand that death metal was a valid form of art.
Yeah.
And the other people in the studio, they didn't necessarily want much to do with it until the money. You know, Scott saw it as a valid form of art, and figured out a way to translate it. And made, definitely laid the groundwork for how we would do extreme music all this time later. But the vision to see something important artistically when it comes across your desk, I think I spend a lot of like meditative time trying to keep an open mind about the things that I see, you know,
Yeah.
so that I
How
don't
far
miss an
back?
opportunity.
Um, how far back
Hmm?
does your relationship with Scott Burns go?
Oh, not very far. Eulogy did not work with him only because we just kind of wanted to do like our own thing. We didn't necessarily want to do what was going on in Florida.
Yeah.
We did do a demo at Morrisound just so we could get played on the radio, and that was done by Tom Morris. And I don't remember why we picked Tom other than Altars of Madness, and it probably was that Scott was booked, because I
Hmm.
think we would have done whatever. I talked to Scott the first time right before I did Twisted Prayers for Gruesome. other than having just meeting him in passing or seeing him at shows back in the day and stuff, because he did live sound too. And he was always a really nice guy. He was always really cool. We had a lot of mutual friends, so we ran into each other here and there. But as far as him and I becoming friends, that probably started on Twisted Prayers, where before we started the record, I called him to ask him some specifics about spiritual healing, like how certain things were done. And we just kind of we struck up a friendship. He'll come over occasionally to the studio and just hang out with me, and we don't we mostly talk about philosophy of music and engineering, not really the specifics.
Yeah.
Like not the technical specifics, but just the idea behind it. And he's a really, really, he's a really great dude. He's really fun to hang out with. Like he's super nice, and just talking about the old days and the way that things were done, and we just have a good time hanging out. But it's been about I don't know, like 7 years now, maybe.
Okay. You mentioned the late Sean Reinert, man, and I'm just one of my favorite fucking drummers of all time. I mean, God, I mean, the Human album alone and all his work in Cynic, I mean, it's just fucking, amazing to say it, quite briefly. Um, you mentioned you was a good friend of his, and I'm just really curious, like, what was he like a person? I never had the opportunity to meet him, and I wish I did.
Well, I went to work for Cynic in 2010 after Traced and Air came out. I started touring with him as their front of house guy. He was, I mean, talent. It's you can't speak enough to it. But like as a dude, he was funny, uh, sarcastic, really lighthearted. He didn't get mad. He's more cynical, funny, cynical. Didn't really mean to do that, but he was more
Oh, yeah.
cynical towards the things that made him angry, as opposed to raging about things. Like if something was irritating to him, he was a little bit more snide towards it than getting actually mad. He's extremely talented. He was not egotistical in any way, shape, or form, not even a little bit. I think he knew that he could play. I don't think, I don't think anybody that plays at that level like doesn't know. But he didn't act like an asshole. I never saw him act like an asshole to anybody. As a matter of fact, I always saw him be nothing but pretty gracious and accommodating and communicative to fans and people like that. He was always cool to me as far as like, because I mean, I went into that job as a fan of Cynic and Sean, so I was a little bit like I don't really get starstruck, but I was stoked to be there. And
Yeah.
he'd like smoke weed and hang out and have a drink, and he's a funny dude. He's just hilarious. He's a really special player, especially if you ever watched him play. It was like four individual musicians, each appendage attached to a torso. And
Yeah.
his finesse and his dynamic control and his flow. You have a drummer that's going to go kink, that's all neat, but that's not a flow. That's a series of
Mhm.
tasks.
Mhm.
Sean played drums in what I would call like a free form train of thought. You could watch him play and his limbs seemed independent but connected. He's a genius at tuning his drums. He had, in my opinion, drum perfect pitch. He was a single tone tuner type of style. He didn't do a descending tone as toms were. Ding, they were like a single note. And his understanding, of how hard to hit a cymbal versus how hard to hit the shells, depending on the environment that he was in, and his ability to shift was, I don't think he thought about it. I think it was natural, because I think what was happening is that he knew what he wanted to sound like, and so depending on the environment, he would adjust, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
But as a dude, he was a lot of fun to tour with. He's very funny, very sarcastic. You know, we hung out, drank, listened to a lot of music and stuff at nights on the bus, and it was just a very fun person to know. Um, Not to mention, standing in the shadow of a giant, it's really cool when you have a life where you have opportunities to spend time with people that you respect and end up being friendly with them or whatever. I mean, I have 100 examples. Sean's one, it's a cool thing to surround yourself with creative people, um, and people that you respect, because in a way it causes you to level up or to work harder, to be deserving of being in those circles, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel about that, about Cynic, that I feel like I was really, fortunate. I wouldn't call it luck. I don't really believe in luck. Like, luck creates circumstances, but you rise to the challenge. Like, you get lucky to get in front of the desk, but if you don't have the chops, you're not staying there. So I don't really think a lot about luck. You know, Luck creates circumstances, but it's still you that has to follow through. So yeah, I really liked all those guys. Paul and Sean both were very funny. They had their quirks. The two of them, um, you could tell they'd known each other for a long time. You
Yeah.
know,
Like
Paul,
since they're like teenagers.
Paul going, yeah, I mean, Paul going to do yoga at the top of the jungle gym while me and Australian Mark were holding off 10 Eastern Bloc crust punks that were trying to get into our bus, like shit like that, like this ridiculousness. But he was extremely, extremely, extremely talented, but oddly, he was way more focused on the journey as a musician, in my opinion, just observing him, than he was about the accolades and the adoration. He was I don't feel like his journey was done. There are people who get to a point and it becomes all about absorbing the energy of the accolades and the adoration, and that's what they're going to do, and that's okay. I mean, if you
Mhm.
worked hard and you got it, you deserve it. There are other people who that stuff is just a peripheral, because you're on a mission. You're trying to get somewhere. You know what I mean?
Right.
You you haven't reached your destination. And I would say that, in a way, like, I think as proficient and good as he was, it always seemed to me like he was like pushing. I'm sure he went through highs and lows where at times he didn't want to play, and or maybe he took a break or this or the other. But my experience was, it seemed like he was on a trajectory, and pretty, steadfast about that. I think he was always trying to improve or improvise and come up with new ideas and stuff, or, have it where he could record his own drums at his house and things like that. He's a really good dude. Really, really good dude, actually.
As far as your own band's concerned, Jarrett, Polka, how hard are you on yourself when it comes to recording, your own instrument?
Brutal, brutal.
Figured that was gonna be the case.
I just finished. I just finished the guitar solo. I had to put on a song that we've had on deck to be completed for about a year. Um, I think I started that solo 2 weeks ago. I had to write it. Sometimes the problem is there are too many options. Like, there are too many things I could play, and that can be an issue, a hard thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I got it written for the most part in a week, and then I think I probably spent another 3 or 4 days just in the other room under my loft where I do most of my writing and stuff. I've got like a quad cortex under there, and another Pro Tools rig. Strangely, I don't really write in this room, in the uh, control room.
Yeah.
I think I mentally have a different context in here, like as an engineer, as a producer, as this or the other. So I
Yeah.
find that I'm a lot more myself, like still the musician Jarrett when I'm out of this room, as weird as that sounds. But then, so I've practiced until I can bag the solo. And then I just came in here and basically turned on my amplifier and, nailed it. But I nailed it after pushing myself and digging holes in my fingers and putting calluses on my hands for like 2 weeks.
Hmm.
It has to be right. Um, Rhythmically, rhythm playing in Pulchra, I mean, a lot of the time Jeff played a lot of it. Jeff and I would like trade off though. Like I would usually like engineer and just let Jeff play the rhythms, and then I would play like melodies and stuff over that and play the leads, but all the like chuck 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 because Jeff's a Xerox machine. I mean, he could double himself really really well, and I don't have enough ego in that capacity to it must be me. That no. Like I
Yeah.
can tell you from experience, one guitarist playing the rhythms on most records is way better. Um, but but then there would be things like so fast picking, probably because of the way I learned how to do it, which probably goes back to like the accused, like Tom Niemeyer. I almost have to jump start my hand, like to get it going. And
Yeah.
that first hit, it's like it bounces into the rhythm. It was probably a deficiency. Now it's become a style. So when those fast pick parts come, the first bit that I play will be emphasized. Like I dig in harder on it subconsciously. And it's just a way of, you can tell that it's me if you hear it. And um, there are instances where like things like that, like I was better suited to play that. And so Jeff and I,
Hmm.
we just didn't really have a lot of ego between the two of us. We just throw the guitar back and forth, like we just didn't really care. Um, and that stuff went pretty well because you know you're working with people and you are you want to do your best in the environment and in the circle. It's like when you're jamming with people, you play your best. I mean, I try to anyway. Just so you can help to elevate the room. You can like rise to the room or whatever. So you're putting forth your best foot. Um, but I'm brutal on everybody in where poker's concerned. You know,
Hmm.
like I don't want to repair anything. I mean, not that I have to be, but like with Clay, Clay and I have done songs where he's done, his thing and we come in, we record it and there it is. And there are other times where he's done it and I just am looking for something different and I'll dig for it until I get it. But he's real receptive to that because Clay and I have been writing music together since, 1991 or something like that. We speak a language that I think probably only the two of us speak. But
Yeah. So how long
um
did Polka? Sorry. Go ahead.
no, no, go ahead. I'm just thinking out
I was
loud
just I was
kind of.
just
What were you
saying.
going to say?
I was just saying for like some of the viewership who don't know too much about you, or is not or who's not aware of your band Polka. Um, how long has the band been around? Like, and was it your brainchild or was it like a collective effort?
No, not at all. In fact, I was talking about that the other day. Originally, Clay, Jason Barron, and Jeff Breeden started this thing, and they asked me, Clay, I guess had been trying to get different people to play on it, and he called me up and he's like, "Do you have a bass?" And I was like, "Yes, I have the best bass. I have a Thunderbird bass." And he says, "Will you play on this, thing I'm going to do?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." Why are you making a demo? Why don't you just make a record? He's like, well, how much would it cost to make a record? And I was like, well, probably a lot more than you want to do for a project. I said, but I mean, if I was playing in it and I was a member of it, I mean, it wouldn't really cost anything, just travel and stuff just to get down here. And so I joined their band. The first record was pretty much written and I just produced it. I brought in Heather, I brought in the cellos, I recut Fire and Storm. I added the, leads on X, even though I was playing the bass. I played all the bass. Uh, I mean, I did what a producer does, and I had a lot of contribution to it as far as like ideas outside of the songs. Like all that noise under Soul Stench is basically a drumstick on a guitar, like just
Hmm.
make, which I got the idea from Daniel Ash from Bauhaus, which is why you should listen to all kinds of different music and not just one genre of music because you'll get cool ideas. By the way,
100%.
everybody, listen to Jarrett. Um, so no, it was their band, and we made a deal of me producing and playing in the band. Time went on. Uh, Jason owns tattoo shops and stuff, and wanted to focus on that more, of like kind of getting his family's business together a little bit more. And I think he just wanted to do music a little closer to home that wasn't as much of like a big, like huge leap of an effort to, have to travel across the country every time you turn around and this, that, and the other. And so he just decided to step down vocal wise. And, amicably, we're still friends and everything. It wasn't any kind of shittiness at all. And that's when I called Adam. And I, had known Adam for years. I played a little bit of fill in for Wolfhammer, and I always liked his vocals, always thought he was good. So we hired him. So it's evolved over time, but no, it definitely was not my brainchild, but I definitely took it on pretty quick. Once I kind of made a deal with them to produce it and try to get it out there in the world, I kind of took it, pretty personally as to what it was, how good it was, how the work was being done, what the work looked like. Um, and, just started really pushing. I found that it was a lot harder to get that done than I thought it would be. I think I expected a little more reciprocation
Hmm.
from people, particularly the business people that I've broken my back for and covered your slack ass over the years. And we didn't really get that.
Yeah.
We didn't really get a lot of help at all. So I think I exist in a different place with it now, where before I really like kind of wanted to jump in the stream. I wanted to tour. I wanted to, play. And I thought that we had as much right as anybody did. Uh, I mean, Clay and I played in a band called Eulogy from Tampa. I didn't tell you it was great. A bunch of people have been bugging the shit out of me about something I did when I was 17 for 30 years. I never said it was shit. You said that. So
Yeah.
someone else told me it was important, not me. Not me. And, Adam has his lineage with, the Veil of Maya and then Wolfhammer and then, Skeleton Witch, and John played in Abigail Williams. So, I mean, it seems like a given that the people involved could play.
Yeah.
And, you know, I I liked the music a lot, which is where I'll usually start. Like if I don't like the music or whatever, I mean, it's whatever. I'll just say, well, it's someone else's cup of tea or whatever. Like I really liked it
Hmm.
music wise. Like I really, especially the last album. Um, I really liked the material that we put together. And it was an interesting place because even though I was the producer, like I said, Jeff wrote the basis for most of those songs. Then they get arranged, they get the tempos changed, they get melodies written, leads written, cellos written, acoustic guitars written, all kinds of other shit that definitely comes from me as a
Hmm.
producer. But the foundation of it was written by Jeff. So I can look at it objectively as an outsider because I didn't write the songs. So I think I have a better view of being able to determine whether or not I think the material is good or whatever. And now I kind of like exist in a different place where um, I'm just going to play and, enjoy that process and creating things or whatever. And I don't really care what happens exactly. Like as far as like record labels go, it's like, look, I mean, a bunch of fucking records for these labels for like, shoestring budgets or whatever. I mean, that's okay. Nothing personal, but believe me when I tell you now, don't expect a fucking discount from me.
Right.
I mean, if it's just, I mean, it's business, right? It's just business.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, it's just business.
Yeah.
No sweat. No sweat. It's just business. I was kind of, I mean, I, my girlfriend would probably hit me over the head for being this honest about this. It kind of tripped me out that we didn't really get any assistance from the industry with Pulchra.
Yeah.
Um, just at the stage I am at life with the producing and the touring and everything like that, I would never have joined a band that I didn't believe in.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done it like for fun. If I was going to do something for fun, I would do something real easy. Clay doesn't want to play Eulogy? Killer. Hey, Tony. Hey, Ronnie Palmer. Hey, John Rice. I need you to come play some old music from the early 90s. Oh, what? None of my band are functional? Oh, okay. Shit. Check it out. Adam, you can do eulogy vocals. Wait, Jason Hohenstein, you can do eulogy vocals, can't you? Shit. Ben, you can sing eulogy.
Fucking
Hold
A.
up a second. Hey, Jay Fernandez, me and you playing Brutality together. Oh, you were a member of eulogy. Come on over here for a second. You
Yeah.
know,
You definitely have the who's who of you know, in your back pocket.
I could take the easy road and I could ride the name and this fascination with 90s Florida death metal, but that's not what I really want to do. So it kind of freaked me out that we didn't get more assistance or more help. And there were even people, that like industry people, these aren't bands, these are people in the business side of things that came to me and were like, oh, yeah, if you introduce me to these people that you're working with right now that I have no access to, I'll put you on this tour. And and then you do it, and then the time comes for that tour to be happening, and you're like, "Yo, are we going out or whatever? Are we on it?" Oh no, that's just not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And just you kind of,
That puts a
it's
bad taste
almost
in your
like
mouth.
I feel like I committed a sin by deciding to play again. And what some of these people didn't understand is that I was a musician first. You know, yeah, I became your front of house engineer. I became the headliner killer, which is a joke. But like with Goatwhore, like a lot of times, like my goal, whoever was headlining, was to make them wish they weren't. To hit as hard as I could with Goatwhore and just not leave a lot left.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that's got to deal with promoters that don't want to pay you. I'm the guy that's been taken into an ice box in Long Island with six like Long Island looking dudes that could be in the Sopranos, sit there staring death in the face and laughing at him, going, fuck you, pay me, even though you're about to get fucking hurt if you don't get out of there the right way.
Yeah.
But before I did all that, I was a musician first. And so it almost like in a weird way felt like I committed a sin by joining the other side. A lot of times I've said that the industry aspect of this reminds me of like a 1920s carny. And they get these little orphan kids and they throw them out in the van to traipse across America for $150 a night while they're just sitting back, like, pulling the puppet strings or whatever. And all you people that are behind the scenes and you're not up on stage playing, with your gatekeeping and like playing God with your festival lineups and all this other shit, like you're not shit. You don't mean fuck
Yeah.
all. The only thing that fucking matters is those bands that are playing the music and those kids in the audience. Like just because you are in a position of power or whatever the fuck you are, like you don't mean shit and you contribute nothing but an arena. That's all you are. You remind me of a DJ that
Yeah.
pushes play. That's all you do. Boy, that was like pretty dark.
Yep.
I probably shouldn't get.
Yep.
But, like I said, it was
No,
weird to me
no,
that we
I'm
didn't
gonna
get more
piggy
help. Yeah.
I'm gonna piggyback on what you just said because I have a certain disdain for fucking for A&R and PR folk, because when I was, just starting this out, I made a point to, like, just do everything organically, and just network, and um in fact, I never bothered asking Ben, because Ben, guys in Goatwhore, like, probably the biggest band that I know personally, and I didn't have it in my mind to ever, like, and ask Ben, hey man, can you, like, ask such and such if they want to come on a podcast with me? That never became a thought until Ben said, dude, I can get you a conversation with XYZ person, artist. And I was like, well, I didn't want to ask you. And he was, he how Ben is. He's like, dude, he's like, hey, closed mouths don't get fed. And I was like, you're absolutely right. And then, like, the one time, the one time that, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna make a pivot in my in my philosophy, and I'm gonna ask a PR person to see if I can talk to, um, you know, a band that you actually work with. And and the original PR person was like, "Yeah, no problem." I emailed them and they liked what I did, and I actually worked with some of the bands on their label. And then when it came time to work to get another band, well, we switched PR firms. This is who's handling the PR, and so they gave me that email address, and without any fucking explanation whatsoever, it was like, it's gonna be a hard no from us, dog. You just don't have the bandwidth, or you don't have the reach. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
All right,
Free publicity
this
is
is a
free publicity,
fucking
in my
this
opinion.
is a fucking problem. Well, you're going to tell me off air who that was, and I'm going to go ask because that look, all you fucking record labels, like, you pay me because you have to. Somebody says they want to do a record, I give you a price, you pay for it. You're not doing me a favor, so I don't give a fuck about you. Check it
I'll even
out.
get. I even. I was gonna say.
None of you
I'll
want
even do.
to. Hmm?
I even do
What?
one better. I got the receipts.
Look, man, this industry now, record labels and things like that, all they want to see are your clicks, your likes, your this, that, or the other, whether they deem you worthy. Let me tell you something, fools. Some of the greatest musicians on earth are unknown. They come from nowhere. And if you
Hundred
keep
percent.
waiting for everybody else to do your fucking legwork so you can what? Press a record? I can press a record. What are you, the mob? You're like making a loan to somebody, your distribution. Okay, that's great. But if you people don't start wanting to create things and cultivate things and help build things that maybe have not achieved the numbers, we're all going to lose. So you go ahead and
Yes.
do whatever you want to do in your little office, your little record label. Only going to pick up a band that's already done the legwork. If I was a band and I had 100,000 followers, fuck do I need you for?
No
What am I going to
shit.
give you a cut of anything for? Why? Why? I'll put it out myself. If I have that many followers, I have all the reach I need. Why do I need
Exactly.
a record label? Well, you don't give good budgets to make records at um hang on one second.
No, go ahead. Yeah. Always business. Look at him. I love it. Or it could be personal. I don't know.
Sorry. No, it's not. But well, again, we're gonna take a picture of you. But sorry, I'm gonna restart that over again. Here's the
No
thing.
problem.
What do I know? I'm just a guy that loves music and happened to be a tech head and learned how to, like, make records. I wrote some music when I was a kid, when I was 17, that some people say might have had some impact. Who cares? But I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you this right now. The industry, this whole idea that like the bands do the legwork and then you just come and take. Haven't you ever heard the story of the little red hen? What's wrong with you? There's a hen in the barn. She finds some grain. She says, I'm going to make some bread. Hey, you guys in the barn, you want to help me dig the soil? No way, I'm not doing that. Okay. Plants of shit. Summertime going around. Hey, you guys want to help me water it? Nope. Waters the shit. Fall comes, time for the harvest. Reap and sow. Cut down the wheat. You guys want to help me take this to town? No. All right. Takes it to town, gets the mill, makes the flour, comes home, makes the bread. Now there's the bread. Everybody comes like, oh, I want some bread. Fuck you. You know me do nothing to get here. They got to start wanting to develop things. Like stop trying to get in front of what you think is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Trends, I mean, I've watched metal go through so many trends in the last 15 years since I've been touring or whatever. I mean, we've seen the black metal, we've seen the black and thrash, we've seen the Neurosis Children, we've seen so many different things, and it just changes. Stop trying to get out in front of cool. Cultivate, create something great. Instead of hoping that someone already did the legwork with 100,000 followers of the next, Morbid Angel or whatever, find somebody that's good and develop something good.
100%, dude.
I mean, it's my soapbox. I don't, it's like the thing with like all the drum sampling stuff. A while back, you asked me about the plugins and all that stuff. I think you should make a
Yeah.
record by whatever means necessary. I think you should do it however you can do it. And I think if you can do it at your house and you can do it, that's great. I think you'll find that there are advantages to hiring an engineer and going to a studio that you may not have considered, but that may have acquired certain skills and certain awareness over a long time that can really, really, really help you. But I will tell you this, and this goes for everybody. If everybody has the same drum samples, and we don't record drum kits, we just put drum samples over stuff that people played. We
Right.
have the same amp simulators, we have the same cabinet IRs, and because it's easier, maybe because you just didn't care enough to cultivate the skills to be able to create those sounds yourself, what's going to happen when everybody has the same sounds?
It's all gonna sound the fucking same, and it's all overdone.
Exactly.
Yeah. The market will be completely saturated with the same shit.
So I would like to see people more interested in creating things, and I would like record labels to stop judging what they're going to get behind based on how many clicks. I mean, how do you know where the clicks came from?
Right.
Did you pay for enough boosts where enough, bots clicked so that it looks like you have more numbers? It can't be this way. People that love and care about music need to go out and find music that is worthy to get behind and push. And I know it's a risk. I know bands are volatile. They're like marriages. You're talking about 5 people being married together. The longevity and probability is questionable. But if you want to live in a world where you're cultivating art and cultivating things that are real and this, that, or the other, just do it differently.
Yeah.
Do it differently. Go get behind things that have substance. Don't get behind things because they sound like this other thing that somebody said was cool. Man, we went to that festival last weekend, me and you, like I felt like I was in 1982. There's like this big upswing of people, seems like younger generation jamming on things that were going on, when I was 9, 7,
Yeah.
8,
Yeah.
9
Same
years
here.
old. And that's cool because I like all that music too. I really like Black Sabbath and Dio and Judas Priest from that era. Like I
Right.
really like.
Same.
Um why is the new generation having to look backwards to find their voice? Maybe because what is the now voice isn't being cultivated because maybe they're too fucking busy writing good songs and practicing to be playing on the internet, getting likes. Ponder that for a second. Wow, I sound
Yeah,
like an
yeah.
old man. Listen to me, bitch.
Somebody has to say it, though, damn it. I love it. This is why I
Why I
do
love
this.
Goatwhore on their better days. Goatwhore's a rock and roll band. Like it's for real. It comes with some highs and lows. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit of a monster truck rolling down the highway with no brake runoff. Sometimes it's going to get a little bit wild, but it's real rock and roll.
It's
I
rock and
care
roll.
about that. I
That
like
it
things
is.
like that. I like that kind of stuff. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I have friends that work at labels and stuff. I mean, I have friends in PR companies. I have friends that are booking agents. So I don't like hate the industry like that. I just over the years I've seen some things and I'd like to see some different things, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all very valid, man. Every point that you made is just,
I
it's
think
just
I've
where we
spent
at
enough
right now.
time.
Yeah. But man, Jared, this was fucking fun, man. We gotta do it again. We gotta devote another 2 hours for your soapbox alone.
Well, sorry, I don't know why I go in on that tangent, but sometimes it just needs to be said. I mean, I'm not really
Yeah.
I'm not one to mince words. Like if I think something, I'll typically say it.
And dude, that's one of the things probably one of my favorite things I appreciate about you. But before I let you go, what I like to do on every episode, man, I need to get your favorite 6 albums, something that you just can't live without. Or I mean, or if you want to do, if it's too hard for you to choose your favorite six
Yeah.
albums that you ever produced.
Nah, because my favorite records aren't ones I made, even though I like those. My first favorite record of all time, without hesitation, is the Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, David Bowie. If you told me I could only have one record for the rest of my life, I would listen to that record. Uh, Mick Ronson's one of my favorite guitar players of all time. I like that record a lot. Whew, shit. Six of them, huh?
Yeah,
They just have to be the ones that meant the most to me. Definitely Everything Went Black by Black Flag was a real big life changing experience for sure. Um, Altars of Madness by Morbid Angel was a huge one for me. Big life changing type of thing. Um, I'm just gonna have to say like the Led Zeppelin catalog because I've always been a really big Led Zeppelin fan. I couldn't really
that's
pick a
fair.
record, uh,
That's fair.
but they did release like a box set of it all, so I can just like cheat and say the box set.
Many people do on
Oddly
this
enough,
platform.
Dirt from Alice in Chains was a big record for me. Um, I kind of had believed that rock was dead. I kind of felt like hair metal had ruined everything, and I was happy to see grunge come in. Um, but that record wasn't quite as alternative-y,
Yeah,
grungy, post-punk to me. It was a lot more rock and metal, but still with some different ideas. So that record had a big bearing on me. And I mean, if you ask me the same question tomorrow, the answer is going to change, by the way. So, uh,
yeah, yeah.
and then finally, quite possibly Mob Rules, Black
I was jamming
Sabbath,
that today. In fact,
unpopular.
I'm a huge fan
That's
of
a
Mob
great, I
Rules.
mean, I don't really, I mean, I'm a huge fan of the Dio era of Black Sabbath in general, Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules. And then like later on, the stuff they did later, Dehumanizer, I think it was.
Right.
Fantastic stuff. Really, really great stuff.
Shit, yeah.
It's so funny, because as I'm sitting here thinking about this, you know, I just want to say also that, I can't I can't overstate the influence that Christian Death had on me, like Rick Agnew on Only Theater of Pain. I can't overstate how much, the sort of dark wave post punk thing with like Bauhaus and Joy Division and stuff like that, how much of an impact that had on me. Souvlaki by Slow Dive, really, really big impact on me, like kind of that whole noise shoegazer thing. My Bloody
Yeah.
Valentine, Loveless, another one
Oh,
just about
Loveless,
noise and
fucking
sound and
amazing.
something. It's just like I love so. I mean, I was also Dr. John's fucking front of house engineer and monitor engineer, so everything that guy played, like New Orleans jazz in general, I wouldn't even know where to begin and stop with all the stuff that I like. Like being influenced by getting to work with that guy. So it's so vast, the things I like, but those six seem pretty proper. The Bowie, the first one though, that never changes.
Yeah.
That's my favorite album of all time, easily.
Fucking
But
brilliant 6 albums.